Today's reflection is on the arrest and betrayal of Jesus. I don't quite know if any parent these days would name his or her child Judas. That name is such a loaded term, it has such a negative connotation to it that I don't think any parent would want to inflict that on his or her child. See, when we think of the name Judas, we readily associate that with betrayal, disloyalty, being a traitor. But the character of Judas has always fascinated me. I don't quite know what to make of him, though. He's an enigma, for sure, this person of Judas. And these days, I have been reflecting on what Jesus must have felt for Judas. Judas, who was once his trusted friend and disciple, only to hand him over to the authorities. Judas would be the one to betray him. So, what must Jesus feel for Judas? Did he despise him? Did he feel hatred for Judas? Well, Jesus being Jesus, I don't think he has any room in his heart for hatred. So I think hatred is out of the question. So what then? Well, one of the things that can help us understand what Jesus must feel for Judas is Jesus' own words on the cross. Remember the time when the soldiers were mocking him and giving him vinegar to drink? And his response to his oppressors was a prayer to the Father on behalf of the very people who were putting him down. And this is what he said: Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. Those are very powerful words. You know, he could have said, Father, strike them with lightning. For what they've done to me, they deserve to be punished. No, those are not the words that came out of his mouth. Instead, it was a sincere pleading on their behalf that they be forgiven. And as I think about it, I'm guessing, well, maybe, or could it be, that those words are the very same words that Jesus used for Judas. Father, forgive him, for he does not know what he's doing. Forgive him, for he does not know what he's doing. You know, in the Gospel of John, there's a scene there where Jesus dips a piece of bread and he hands it over to Judas. And it says in the Gospel that upon doing so, Satan enters Judas. And that's when Jesus instructs Judas, do quickly what you are going to do. But that phrase, Satan enters Judas, and it suggests that Judas isn't in his right mind. He is acting or possessed by a force bigger, larger than himself. And so all the more plausible and reasonable that Jesus must have felt that, or must have prayed that same prayer for Judas. Forgive him, for he doesn't know what he's doing. My friends, you and I have played the role of Judas many times in our lives. We've played the part of Judas in times when we have been unfaithful to the Lord, when we have sinned. In our sinfulness, we have rejected and betrayed Christ and his love and goodness to us. And yet the fascinating thing is that despite our unfaithfulness, our Lord has remained faithful to us. The Lord has been good to us and has made available to each one of us the unfathomable depths of His mercy. You know, I hope that when we come to realize this, this sense of lavish, extravagant love that God has for us, that this will bring us down to our knees in reverence and in awe, knowing how good really God is to each one of us. Nothing can separate us from the love of God, as Paul writes in his letter to the Romans. And my friends, that is a clear sign that salvation is already operative and in effect in our lives. When we begin to believe and accept as true the truth that God is drawing us ever closer to Him, that God desires our friendship, and that God will be abundant and gratuitous in showering us with His love, goodness, kindness, and mercy. And hopefully, this invites us to conversion, to a transformation of our mind, body, and soul. You see, conversion happens not out of fear or out of obligation. No, when we decide to have a conversion of heart and a conversion of life, it's out of gratitude, deep gratitude for all the good that God has done for us. It is the only fitting way that we can think of that we can make a return for all the good that God has done for us. And so today, my friends, I invite you to reflect on these two questions. The first one is this: how have you been showered with the goodness of God despite your unfaithfulness? How have you been showered with the goodness of God despite your unfaithfulness? And the second one is this: how have you made a return for God's goodness to you? How have you made a return for God's goodness to you? And so I leave you with those two questions to reflect upon and to pray with. And I wish you a very holy and blessed Wednesday. God bless you all.